Hello and welcome to my behind the scenes video. So firstly I'd like to talk a little bit about my idea concepting, why I chose noir. It's one of my favourite genres and it's something that I think I could easily write in due to the fact I wrote a whole 15-minute radio drama in the first semester. I feel like I was pretty good at writing, so it's something that I've done before, and I already had this kind of already written, this already loose story with some easy characters to write, not too difficult in that sense, and the voice acting was something that I feel like I could perform well with the monologues, so that was another strength for me as well. With the script writing, I didn't want to focus too much on dialogue, so there isn't too much in there, as the sound design would suffer, and ultimately it would look a little bit strange within the game. So yeah, I was very comfortable with writing a script that didn't focus too much on dialogue between characters and more sort of a monologue, which allowed the sound design to take the center stage. So my next section is the game recording. So what I used here was a game called Fallout 4 with an engine that I was very familiar with, as I have modded in it and used mods in it before, and I've played the game quite a lot. So I used the console engine, which you use to type in commands to basically bend the game's engine to your will to do what you want to do. So I used that to manipulate the game. I could take out the HUD, trigger animations, use the free camera. It's a game I know well with the correct art style and the best setting that would possibly work for this. I did consider other games, but this was the best one I had available. So now we move on to the sound design. So I made a project in Ableton in which I was going to create the sound effects and ambiences for each scene. I did this early as this was currently in lockdown when the studios were shut, so I thought I'd get all of this done. So the techniques I use mostly are, I start with the bass up, so I start from the bass and then create the more higher frequency sections after for my sound effects and for my ambiences. This sort of sets the scene for me of how it's going to go, and you can sort of build the foundations and then build the house on top of it. Techniques that I used were things such as saturation, EQ to accentuate those parts that I needed to, compression to bring up things that were a little bit quiet and needed to punch through. I also used and research something called infrasound, which is sound that is below our threshold of human hearing in terms of frequency. So with this, I essentially added it into those more scary scenes, so for the nuke, the explosion, the war flashbacks, because they essentially give you a little bit of anxiety, so I wanted things to come across as a little bit scary. So that is a good way of applying that, and it makes the scenes much more powerful. And as for the soundtrack, I wanted a sort of 40s noir style, so something quite dark, but mostly with those little drums that are quite tight drums, quite tight sounding drums. So for that we used Contact 60s drummer Contact library, which worked really well with some manipulation in the velocities. Then we move on to the Foley recording and the mixing, which was done in Pro Tools. I then, exported everything from Ableton into Pro Tools to then do a final mix on everything, which was pretty straightforward, just putting things in their space, making a load of reverb buses, and then, sending those to sending the right ones at the right time and muting them when they shouldn't be, which was a really good way to mix. It gave everything a sense of space. What I want to just throw in here is some Foley that I did for the dog footsteps, which are some leather gloves with some duct taped paper clips to them to create the nails, and that worked incredibly well for the dog footsteps, which was really fun to do. As far as the mix goes, lots of saturation added, lots of reverb added, compression here and there. And with the master, I mastered in Ableton. I exported everything out of Pro Tools into one stereo mix and then mastered in Ableton. So I added a little bit of sweetening comp, a little bit of small EQ to accentuate those areas that need to. So for the big nuke explosion, I wanted to accentuate a little bit of bass there to make it more effective. The master, I mastered to Netflix's specifications, minus 23 LUFS, plus or minus 1 LUF on those, and minus 1 dB true peak. In the end, I settled for minus 22.7 LUFS and minus 0.9 dB true peak, so I was just about in the specifications. My video was edited in DaVinci Resolve, as this is the video editing software that I'm most familiar with. I work with it a lot in my job, which allows me to just have extensive knowledge of the ins and outs of the software. To do the video editing here, I researched a lot of different techniques to do with color correction and things like that to essentially give give the best life into the film and to give some juxtaposition between scenes, between one that should be happy and one that should be a little bit sadder. Colour is a great way of accentuating those feelings. Along with it, I put some film grain on the whole thing, a vignette towards the middle to darken out the edges, and some abstraction to give it a sort of more, a kind of stylized art to go on it. It actually came out very well, and I was very proud of how that worked. All in all, I'm very proud of the video and how it came out and my editing skills here. So this concludes my behind the scenes video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I was very lucky to do this project, and I think it came out fantastically well, so I'm very happy with how it's gone. Thank you.